All right, welcome in. It is time for Total Bases. I've got Bryan Leonard and Tokyo Brandon with me, and for the next 45 minutes, we are going to work our way through the Hump Day slate, the Wednesday slate. A lot of day games today. We were just kind of talking off air. Hasn't been as many day games as usual early in the season, and suddenly we get like a pretty much an entire slate of day games today. But we're going to start with what I'll call our feature game today. I'm going to call it the feature because A, it's the Los Angeles Dodgers, who are almost always a feature, and B, it's one of our only sort of primetime games, one of the only games going on tonight. And so I'll start with Bryan Leonard here because this is his Cleveland Guardians. Last night they lose 4-1, but more importantly, Bryan, they lose Chase DeLauter, who was kind of the bright spot in the early going for this Guardians team. Now it's going to be Gavin Williams, Yoshinobu Yamamoto. How are you seeing Guardians Dodgers out in Chavez Ravine tonight?
Yeah, that was a heartbreaking thing. We don't know yet what's happened. They said they did the X-ray and nothing's broken, but he's been such a fragile player his entire career that it's something to worry about. And he was really one of the only guys that was hitting. Ramirez has not been hot so far, and they don't have too many good bats on this Cleveland team, as I mentioned before. We got Gavin Williams against Yamamoto. Yamamoto's roughly about a 170 favorite, 175 favorite right here, total 8.5. Yamamoto's a guy that has been very good, but there was a lot of concerns coming into the season because he had to pitch so many innings in the playoffs last year. And coming over from Japan, they don't pitch as often, which is why the Dodgers are going with the 6-man rotation. But he's been good when he's been out there, and I would expect him to carve up this Cleveland offense that are a little bit shorthanded in this one. Do I want to lay the price? I'm not so sure. Gavin Williams, a guy who, as Brandon has pointed out in the past, he's a guy that gives up a lot of walks. And with the Dodgers being such a good hitting team, when you're giving up extra walks in that's not a pretty sight. But if you take a look at the Dodgers' best players, none of them have really gotten off to a big start here. So I think Cleveland's catching the Dodgers at a good time when their bats are a little cold, especially their better players. But I don't trust Cleveland to score more than probably 2 to 3 runs in this game. And I'm sure the Dodgers will get more than that. So if I'm going to play it, I'm on the Dodgers side, but I've got to find some way to play it without having to lay the 270, 280 here.
Yeah, let's get Tokyo Brandon here. That was, the Dodgers in the end, they win, they cover last night, they win 4-1, but kind of like going off of what Bryan says, it certainly wasn't easy. Bats, they out-hit the Guardians 10-2 in the end, but the bats never really got going. Good thing they tacked on those 2 in the 8th because the 9th inning got a little dicey there for a second, but they do get out of the inning. They win the game 4-1. So, yeah, talk to me about Yamamoto, the Dodgers, and if you want to lay that 1.5.
At home, I mean, it could win, but it's still a hefty price for a -1.5 at home, even though it's the Dodgers. But if you look at these guys, how they faced each other, Yamamoto has a career .458 OPS against Cleveland. Small sample size, only 17 at-bats against. Gavin Williams is one of my chronic walkers. As a matter of fact, I'm projecting him to walk 4 guys today. I checked DraftKings before the show, and his walks prop was not out yet. I imagine it'll be 2.5. So over 2.5 walks for Gavin Williams might be a way to go in this one. His career OPS against the Dodgers is .954. It's terrible. .750 is my Mendoza line for OPS. So Gavin Williams over in his walks. Yamamoto over 17.5 outs. I mean, they left Ohtani in a lot longer than I thought they would yesterday. So they'll probably leave Yamamoto in at least 6 innings if he's cruising. I don't think there's any early season short hook for him. Another way to go, look, when you have a huge favorite like this and you really love the favorite and you think the starter is going to go 5 innings, bet the starter to get the win. If he goes 5 innings and the bullpen preserves it, you can usually get plus money for any pitcher to get a win, even Yamamoto of Cy Young candidates. So Yamamoto get the win would be a good plus money way to bet if you're in love with the Dodgers.
This is very anti how I usually bet, but I see a couple folks in the chat saying Guardians plus 1.5 is good value. I kind of disagree. I think the Dodgers are actually the value here. And it's crazy to say that, being as though they're minus 250. But you know what? Last night they were minus 270. And I think this is, so what last night they're minus 270, 275. The Guardians, now granted, DeLauder is a relative unknown, but this is an offense that I think coming into the season, I said was going to be pretty bad outside of like J-Ram and Quan. And DeLauder kind of stepped up, even though, very, very small sample size, had that great series in Seattle. Now you lose him. It's like, I don't understand why the Dodgers would be a smaller favorite today than they were yesterday, especially coming off of a 4-1 win. You got Yamamoto. I prefer Bybee to Gavin Williams. I think the jury's still somewhat out on Williams. I know that he, kind of had a good enough season last year. It was definitely a bounce back from the year before, but I think the Guardians could potentially be bad. I like the Dodgers minus 1.5. A rare scenario, Bryan Leonard, where I would consider to lay the minus 1.5 with the home team in that minus 115 to minus 120 range. Go ahead.
Well, two things. Edwin Diaz threw 33 pitches yesterday, so he's not going to be in there today. Most teams, you would worry about your closer not being there, but as we've seen, the Dodgers are loaded in the back of the bullpen. I don't think that'll make much of a difference. But TB talked about Ohtani pitching longer in the game. I watched the game, and they said Ohtani's goal this year is to win the Cy Young Award, or to at least be in contention for it. And with the 6-man rotation, he would have to pitch longer in games to get to the limit innings. They got a certain amount of innings that they've used for years to be considered for the Cy Young Award. And if he pitches 6 innings a game in 25 starts, he's not going to get there. So they're going to try to stretch him out a little bit. So keep that in mind when you're playing your over props for Ohtani, for batters faced the rest of the way out. And that's the goal. They said that was Ohtani's major goal this year. He's done everything he can offensively. He's shown that he's the best hitter in baseball, along with Aaron Judge, but he wants to be the best starting pitcher in baseball also. So keep that in mind when you're playing the outs props for Ohtani the rest of the season. Probably a good idea to bet him over.
I didn't know if you had one more. Yeah, I know. I had the mute going. I didn't know if you had one more thing to add before we move on, but I'll answer Jimmy here. I don't think this is the spot to take the -1, only because you're already paying a little juice on the spread. Like for me, and TB, I see you nodding. I'll let you comment on this. For me, I'll utilize the -1 if it's like, if the -1.5 is plus money and I can get a more reasonable price on it. But once you're in the -115, -120 range or higher for the -1.5, I think you just have to take a stand and decide if the Dodgers are winning by 2 or more. So I don't like the -1 in this scenario. It would have to be -1.5 or nothing. TB, go ahead.
-1 is, as my particular rule, -1 is good when the money line is -150 to -190, because you can knock about a nickel or 30 cents of juice off it. So you can bring it down to like a 120 or a 140. That's the time you use a -1. Someone in the comment is saying Yamamoto to record a win is -130. I find that hard to believe, but if that's the case, I wouldn't do it, because you need 3 things to happen for your pitcher to get the win. He has to go 5 innings. Your bullpen has to preserve the win, and you have to win the game. So, and you have to be winning when he comes out. Minus money for those 3 things to happen in one game is not good value. So I would not bet that. If it's anything plus, I would take it. And Brian made an excellent point on Ohtani. That's right. I was watching and they said the same thing. They said that's basically the only thing he hasn't accomplished so far. He wants to be the best ever, and that is his goal. So yeah, if he only gets 1 start a week, he's going to have to go 6 innings in those starts to even be considered.
I guess we'll call this feature game part 2. This one goes earlier. You want to talk about someone probably going against him for that NL Cy Young Award. That would be Paul Skeens. However, Paul Skeens, Bryan Leonard, did not get himself off to a Cy Young start. Didn't make it out of the first inning in his first start of the year. I think he can mail the invoice to O'Neal Cruz for that. I don't think that was his fault, although I also don't think it's fair to, like, he wasn't sharp. I can tell you firsthand, I had the Pirates in that game. He wasn't sharp. I mean, if O'Neal Cruz can play even like a high school varsity level center field, they're probably out of the inning. But we can't just gloss over the fact that Skeens straight up did not have it. Now, turn back around here. He's headed on the road. I've got some folks in the chat saying, oh, Reds at plus money look good to them. I don't know. I'm not dying to lay that price with the Pirates, but I feel like you're poking the bear thinking that Paul Skeens is going to have another bad start. So I'll send this one to you, Pirates, Reds, and how are you evaluating Skeens after that first performance?
Yeah, there's if you're on Twitter, Pitcher List has grading cards that they put out based on each pitcher's starting start, and they have the results. And of course, the results weren't good, but I don't think he was that bad in that game. You see a lot of times where a guy pitches really well and gets bombed, or he doesn't pitch well and he gets a win. It's something that I think is very valuable. It's sort of like a game score in basketball or football, that kind of thing. I like to look at that. So I don't look at the final lines. I look and see what they graded out as for his control, for his stuff, and the results and everything. So I don't think he was as bad as that. And to be honest with you, I talked about this the other day. When a pitcher is on the mound and the defense behind him screws up, it kind of shakes him a little bit, because you only need 27 wins or 27 outs in a game to get the victory, and you just gave one away. And for it to happen multiple times, I think it got to him. He's a pretty level-headed guy in skiing, so I may be misrepresenting it, but I consider myself an even kill guy, and it would bother the hell out of me. So I'm throwing that start out. I'm not paying a lot of attention to it. The problem is you've got these two teams. I happen to think they're equal, and if either one of these teams is any better, it's probably Cincinnati slightly better. Abbott's a guy who everybody continues to think his stats are fake, because if you look at his results compared to what he has done, he should not be this good. But if you take a look at all the Cincinnati starters the last couple of years, this is a fly ball park that gives up a lot of home runs. They don't give up a lot of home runs. The closer is a fly ball pitcher. He had a great season last year. Something is going on with the coaching in Cincinnati, where they're throwing pitches in which the other team cannot lift the ball and hit it hard. Everybody's off balance. So pay attention to that when Cincinnati is at home, that they don't give up many home runs like they did in the past. But Abbott's a guy, if you trust his results, this is a hell of a bargain. If you look at him, you say, he's been a little bit lucky the last couple of years, I think it's going to eventually come back against him, then maybe Skeens is the way. But I'm not going to be on Pittsburgh in this game. I'm with you. I'm not going to lay that number. Probably sitting it out overall. And you've got a lefty going for Cincinnati, which is, Pittsburgh only sees 1 out of every 3 or 4 games. So slightly in Cincinnati, but not enough to get involved.
Let's go to Tokyo Brandon, see if he can give us maybe a different way to look at it, because I'm with you. I like Skeens. I like the Pirates can't get there on the price. TB, you've been we've had people in the chat ask specifically for your outs props for the pitching. Paul Skeens has got to go longer than he did last game, but does he go long enough to get over? Does he get enough strikeouts? Talk to me maybe about what we can expect from Skeens today.
I will put my outs projections on my Twitter X account, Tokyo_Brandon, right down there. I'll put them up later today, guys. So check back and I'll give you my projections for that. Skeens is uber talented. He's arguably, not even arguably, he's a top 2. It's either him or Scooble, top pitcher in MLB. And no one can argue that. Do you think he's going to have 2 bad games in a row? I don't. Look, Sandy Koufax, Greg Maddux, all the great ones, Tom Seaver, they had bad games. It happens. So don't live in the moment. Live in the big picture. The chances of him having 2 horrible games in a row are absolutely close to 0. And what Brian was saying about pitchers getting rattled, pitching is like climbing up a mountain. You got to get to the top of the mountain. And when your fielders get errors, it's like you slide down the mountain 1 foot and you just get more tired. That's how kind of the mentality. So yeah, they do get rattled like that. Let's just look in my rankings. I have Pittsburgh hitting better than Cincinnati. I got both bullpens being trashed right now. And Andrew Abbott, like Brian said, he puts up really good numbers. Whether you believe the numbers or not is up to you, but he puts up really good numbers. If anything, I would go under in this game, maybe under first 5, because I think both pitchers are very solid. And I don't think either lineup is that scary. So that's the way I would go if I were betting this.
I woke up, with the mindset that I would look at the Pirates. I gave the Pirates out as my free pick yesterday on my Under the Radar segment. Talked about Bubba Chandler. I guess he pitched very good. Didn't give up a hit. Walked 6 guys. So do what you will with that. But the Pirates did get the win in that game. And it's quite simple. I like the Pirates in this game. I would only be on the Pirates, but minus 160 is just not playable to me. So we'll go ahead and move on from that game. Before we move on and start sort of going a little bit more rapid fire in the chat, guys, we have the double play package up at wagertalk.com. You get to pick 2. I've joked it's like being at Panera. You get to pick the soup or whatever. I actually have not been to Panera probably, God, I can't even tell you, like at least 5 years. But I remember that was their thing. Point is, either the 3 of us right here, whatever 2 fit your style. Obviously, Tokyo Brandon's going to hit the, some of the Asian baseball markets. I'll do KBO and some AAA in addition to MLB. Brian is specifically MLB. You are going to get the bang for your buck doing that combo package. It is significantly less expensive than taking 2 handicappers on their own. So right now we've got the 3-day, and it is the double play package. That is up on everyone's page. And the options are nicely set out for you. So there's 3 different options: me, TB Brian, me Brian. And that is probably the best deal we've got going for the baseball season. Brian, I'm going to come to you here. Ethan, he says, I want to back Shane Smith in the White Sox again after Smith got bombed on opening day. Yeah, well, I was on that, so I do. I think I do as well. I think I'm in that mindset as well. The question here, though, so I'm going to go to Brian because Brian was on the Marlins early in the series. They didn't get it done for him in that game, but they did come back with a win last night. For me personally, I'm kind of higher than the market on both of these teams, so I haven't been able to find a way into this series. But it is interesting because Smith couldn't avoid that one bad inning. That being said, that's sort of been his downfall, the one bad inning over the course of his career to this point. So talk to me about White Sox Marlins, and should Ethan be confident going back to the well with Smith here?
Yeah, I had ended up at the Marlins yesterday as a play for my clients. Alcantara is about 150, 155 favorite, 7.5 here. That's the first thing that I look to because I was looking to bounce back and see and take a look at Smith. Well, he took a look at the numbers. If you're looking at it just in the starters, Miami's got a little bit of an edge. I believe the Miami starter is going to go probably about a full inning longer than the White Sox starter. So there's some guys in the White Sox bullpen, obviously, that I like. Some other guys in the longer relief. So that make it a little bit even. From strikeout percentage, I think Smith will go probably 5 strikeouts. I'll probably get 6 out of Alcantara. But for the most part, I prefer the Miami side on it right now. But I don't want to lay that number. It's a little bit of money has come in on the dog here. I thought I was going to like Smith, but when I take a look at the number, I'm not getting quite what I wanted to get here. And I trust Miami's pitching staff a little bit better. So I'm going to be passing on this one, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm pretty much with you for all the same reasons. I'm looking for spots to back the White Sox, but I go back to last year, White Sox 15-36 in 1-run games. A big way I'm trying to play them this year is to find good spots to back them plus 1.5. It's I think that they will likely, they're probably going to win some of these close games, but I do think they're going in the right direction. And that is ultimately the way to look at them. So to go back to your point, Brian, you can't bet on +1.5 here at this price. So you're kind of in this weird, spot with the way it's priced where you can't take the White Sox +1.5. On the other side with the Marlins, I don't think that's a great money line price either. For me, I'm just surprised with how much the market likes the Marlins so far. Because I thought I was going to be higher than the market on this team. It looks like the books have sort of figured out that the Marlins might be pretty good. Now, Tokyo Brandon, I'm gonna switch gears here and go to a different game, but kind of like the same way I'm trying to back these teams. And the other team that I really am looking for good spots to back on the +1.5 this year is the Colorado Rockies. Now, 4-0 to start the season against the number, against that +1.5. Yesterday, they finally fall short, get blown out by the Blue Jays. The final score of that game, 5-1. Early start in Toronto here. The rubber match of this series, Blue Jays Rockies. How are you looking at this one?
Expect pretty much the same as yesterday. Gausman's a stud. He used to be a stud. We discussed this the last time he started. He's not exactly the same guy he used to be. And yes, Freeland pitches better on the road, but who doesn't pitch better away from Colorado? No big surprise there. So Gausman's the better pitcher in my opinion, but he does have pretty poor stats against this team, these batters in his career. So that would kind of scare me away from, in order to play this, like I said earlier, you either have to play Gausman to get the win, or you have to lay a 1.5 at home. So I would rather not do that. Maybe I would play an over, just because when I play overs, I'm always looking at the worst team and I evaluate whether they can score or not. And I think they can score on Gausman, where I didn't think they could score yesterday. So I actually had the Blue Jays in a parlay, but I think today they actually can score a couple runs on Gausman, and the Blue Jays bullpen has been taxed. So I think an over in this game would be appropriate. I haven't played it yet, but if I were to, that's the way I'd go.
So the reason I put these two games back to back is because tomorrow you're going to get the White Sox against the Blue Jays out in Chicago to open up that series. Now, we'll talk about that game tomorrow. Actually, tomorrow I think we're going to have basically 4 feature games, because I think there's only 4 games on the schedule. But the reason I bring that up is I'm just going to make a general point, and this is something I talked about on my solo segment on the WagerTalk YouTube channel that I do daily called Under the Radar. I'm going to bring Brian in to get his general opinion on this too. The Blue Jays, I think, are going to be a fade for me the next couple weeks. And the reason I say that is, of course, we know the Blue Jays are priced very high in the market. A lot of people have them near the top of the American League. But losing Cody Ponce and the fact that they already have they already have the starting pitcher injuries that they have. Barrios, Trey Savage, Shane Bieber, right? All on the IL. I believe Bowden Francis done for the year. I think he had surgery. I don't think we'll see him this season. That was a big, Ponce holding down that spot was kind of a big deal. And the corresponding roster move that they made was Lazaro Estrada from the minors. So that means one of two things. That either means they're going to trot him out there in a start, in which case you should probably fade him if you see Lazaro Estrada starting a Major League Baseball game, or they're going to have to sort of pull Varland from his relief role and do almost like an opener with Varland going bulk innings. And the reason that that's bad for the Blue Jays is Varland's been one of their better relievers. And so if you take him out of his sort of bullpen spot, I think that hurts the Blue Jays. So I kind of think you have no other pitching in the pipeline for the Blue Jays. Right. Until some of these other starters come back, I'm going to be looking to play against the Jays. So what I'm hoping for personally, and then I want to loop Brian in to sort of see what he has to say about this. I hope the Marlins roll today. And I kind of hope the Blue Jays roll as well, because I don't want any part of the Rockies here. I think this is a bad spot for the Rockies leaving town. Already won a game in this series. Give me a Marlins blowout and a Jays blowout. So maybe we can get a nice price on the White Sox for tomorrow. That's really what I'm hoping for. Brian is nodding. Let's get Brian in on this topic.
Yeah, I really think Toronto needs to trade for another pitcher. There's Atlanta's in a situation very similar to Toronto where they've got a lot of injured guys. And we've already seen that the guys they have, other than the aces, have really struggled. It would not surprise me. Now, the Dodgers don't trade away pitching, but they're so deep in pitching. I really like some of their guys that didn't make the rotation. I think Toronto, even though they just played them in the World Series, they could talk the Dodgers into giving River Ryan or somebody else into a package. That would be the right way to do it, because Toronto right now, I'm with you, either play overs or I'm going to fade their pitchers. And you're getting a game right now where the total is only 7.5 here. So, I'm kind of looking at the over. It opened 8 and it's been bet down to 7.5. Slightly into the over for me, but I agree. Toronto's a team that right now, at least from the pitching standpoint, I'm looking to fade.
All right, Tokyo Brandon, I got to go to you for this one. I heard a rumor once that Yusei Kikuchi does not like pitching during the day. I think he said something along the lines of he likes to get like 13 hours of sleep, and a daytime start really messes up his sleep. I'd much rather prefer to pitch at night. That's an issue for him this afternoon because he's got a 1 p.m. local start at Wrigley Field against the Chicago Cubs. So Kikuchi, your guy, I know you loved to bring this guy up last year. In Wrigley against Matt Boyd, Angels, Cubs, what do you see in this one?
I actually went to his high school and scouted him when I was a scout. He went to the same high school as Otani as well. So it's up northeastern Japan. It's quite a ways from Tokyo, but the countryside. Kikuchi is very, very particular about his sleep. And if you take a look at my Twitter X, I put up the starter OPS versus the hitters they're facing today. And I actually juxtaposed my face with Paul Stanley on the Kiss Destroyer album cover. So take a look at that. I don't know, Brian, did you like Kiss? I'm a huge Kiss fan.
Yeah, I was a Kiss fan when I was little. It was either Kiss or Aerosmith when I was little. Those were the two big.
Yeah, cool. So if you look at that, you'll see that Matthew Boyd has a career OPS of 572 against these batters today. Kikuchi has an OPS of 833, and 755, 750 is my line. And the Cubs are coming off a really bad loss. I think they bounce back here. I never really liked Kikuchi. When he came out of high school, he debated going to the major leagues right out of high school, and then he decided to sign in Japan for like 2 or 3 years, and then he went to the major leagues. I really didn't like his stuff, but the major league scouts were drooling over him when he came out of high school. Never really liked his stuff, and I don't like him now, especially with the Angels. But the Angels certainly are hitting the ball quite well right now. Their bullpen is the problem. They've got a Diamondbacks type bullpen situation there, but they're hitting. Man, they can whack it as long as Trout's in that lineup. Never going to bet an under with that team. But I think it's time to back the Cubs here because I think they bounce back from that. Don't live in the moment, live in the big picture, and the Cubs are just a better team.
Yeah, I'll get Brian in on this one quick. Angels start 3-3. I think you and I are sort of both under the kind of have the same mindset about this Angels team. But I did note that they did gather some interesting pieces, specifically in the bullpen. So I'm curious if you're looking at it like me, where it's like they're 1 or 2 injuries away from like complete disaster, and like they're 3-3. This team might scrap their way to 10-10. So for me, like I need to find the spot where like the well is gonna, the dam is gonna break, if you will, with the Angels. But I don't know that it's like this early in the year. So like talk to me about just that mindset, and if you're staying away from them because of that, because that's one of the reasons that I'm not looking to play against them at this price just yet.
I don't see a reason not to play them, to play the Cubs in this one. I pay for a service that does a lot of simulations, and they've got Kikuchi. His strikeout to walk ratio today, 3.8 to 2.4. That's not what you want on a starting pitcher. Can't even get 2-1 on his strikeout percentage. Matthew Boyd pitched a lot better than what his results were in that first game. I believe he had a 7-1 strikeout to walk ratio. I talked about those pitcher list cards. He graded out really well for there. The result wasn't there, but he's a guy that when he's healthy, he's been very good. Last year, as the season went on, he hadn't pitched that many innings ever because he's always hurt. And he tired in the second half of the season, and then his year-end numbers weren't as great. But when he's healthy, he's a guy I'm looking to back, and his strikeout to walk is 6.4 to 2.5. I like Boyd here from an offensive standpoint. I like the Cubs' offense better than the Angels, although, to be honest with you, some of the Angels' hitters have gotten up to really nice starts. Trout's been terrific so far, talking about guys that have had injury problems. But I kind of like the Cubs here. I think that's a good price. And to get back where Tokyo was talking about playing a pitcher to win, the simulations today show there's only one pitcher in Major League Baseball that has more than a 50% chance of getting a victory, and that's Christopher Sanchez of the Phillies, 54%. So Yokomoto has only got a 44% to get the victory. You don't want to be laying that kind of number with him in that regard. So I know that's something that Brandon does very well on, and he knows it. And this just points it out that he does very well in this.
Very
Brian,
interesting.
Before we move on from this game, I have to point out the total is 6. The wind appears to be blowing in at Wrigley Field. So you're kind of the weather guy. I feel like you've done a good job of like sort of gauging that. The total is 6. That's the talking point. That is a low total.
Okay, let me look at the weather here. Chicago.
And maybe, yeah, I'm seeing 6 minus 110 for the total.
Okay.
The Cubs against Kikuchi in that bullpen? Are you kidding? The Cubs can get 6.
Yeah, at Wrigley Field today, the wind is blowing in. They're expecting 26% less runs than normally, which is 2.28 runs less than normal. You're looking at home runs 40% less, which would be about 0.89 in the game. Doubles and triples down 17%, and singles down 3%. So if you're not going to hit home runs, there'll probably be one. Basically, what they're saying is there's probably going to be one home run hit in this game, and they're going to be 2.25 runs less than normal. And you've got it's a situation here where we got a really good pitcher for the Cubs. Maybe we play the Angels team total under, something to that effect. But yeah, I don't want any part of the Angels in this game.
All right, Tokyo Brandon, before I come to you for your best bets, Truth in the chat says, I've never bought a pick. I've subbed once to someone who made me money for free. Listen, that's fine. This show is free. We love having you here. We don't get paid extra to do this. So if you want to support, the way to do that is to buy the picks. And people ask all the time, well, you come on the show, you don't give out many picks. It's like, if you want the picks, they're at WagerTalk on sale. I don't know how to sugarcoat that. Like that is what we do. That's how we make a living, in addition to betting games. So it's like, that is how you get the picks. However, you're going to get best bets at the end of this show. So if you've made it this far, the picks are coming up, and we've got a great special on the WagerTalk site that basically gives you 2 for 1. So listen, if you don't want to buy the picks, no problem. We appreciate likes, subscribes, just the views help us significantly. If you do, that's what the picks are for, and you actually get the picks. Tokyo Brandon, what is your pick for today? What is your best bet for the show?
I've given out 5 picks on this show, and if you can't disseminate from that, then you're never going to win sports betting anyway. You should pick up knitting. My play for this is going to be I'm going to cheat again. I'm going to take the Phillies on the money line today. It's minus 290 or something like that, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it because we're trying to win a parlay leg. Granted, now don't give me all this hate in the comments and say, oh, professional giving out 290. I'm not. I would never make that a client play. I'm only giving that out because it's a parlay leg and we're trying to win a parlay. So I'm going to go with the Phillies on the money line. I like Christopher Sanchez. The list that I put up on my Twitter X with the starters and their OPS against the team they're facing, Christopher Sanchez is a 516, well under the 750. Yeah, I'm going to go with the Phillies. And let me promote, like Adam said earlier, double play. You can get either two of us, and you can leave one of us out. And you get 3 days full access for those two cappers. I believe it's around $50. So that includes all our 5% plays as well.
You know what, TB, the Phillies is all, I don't hate the Phillies call for the parlay. It's only minus, I see like minus 260, 265. I don't know if like maybe Brian can give us like what a fair sort of market price on that is. But like the other thing too, and Brian just sort of pointed out, like Sanchez has the best chance to record a win today. So if someone wants to not use the parlay or not use the minus 265, they could always just go that route and maybe go Sanchez to record a win. Brian, before you get into your best bet for the show, your parlay leg, can you tell me what we should be putting in the parlay for the Phillies?
Yeah, I'm seeing basically 170, 170, or 270, 275 on that.
All right, we'll go 275. Again, it's a 3-teamer, so we're going to get plus money pretty much regardless of what Brian or I select. But I think the talking point for the show, TB, was good, and Brian sort of hammered that point home with the just this percentage on Sanchez to get a win. Brian, do you have that mark? Like, do you know what the price would be on that?
That I don't. Hold on, let me check. Well, like I said, he had 54% chance of getting the win. So I don't know what the current number is on that.
That's okay. I was really just offering it up as someone if you couldn't somehow find a way to use Phillies on the money line. I do think that's a decent alternate market to look at. Okay, Brian, you have the floor. Best bets. What do you have going on at the website today? And what are you locking in for this parlay leg?
Okay, it's 6:30 a.m. I have not put up any plays for any clients. I'm doing the hockey show when I finish this. So my plays will be up a little bit later today. So I can't tell you what I've got because I don't know what I have at this point. But I'm going to use the under in the Boston game. Yesterday, I talked about Boston on the show, and to the credit of our excellent audience, they were talking about how Boston was struggling hitting, and they continue to do that. Boston's got Burrows is going for Houston in today's game. He got hit pretty hard in the first game out. New team, I've talked about that in the past. When you come over to a new team, I don't like to play him the first time, and it's been a lot of players who struggled in that regard. But I do like Burrows. Burrows is a guy that was hot in the offseason, and if you take a look at him against right-handed batters, 25.3, this was last year, 25.3 strikeout rate, only 4.5 walk rate. So it's over a 20-point strikeout to walk rate against righties. And he'll be facing 6 righties in this lineup. And obviously, you've got one of the aces in Major League Baseball going for the Red Sox today, and that would be Garrett Crochet. And I'm not a big fan of this Houston offense. Trig and I both think Houston's a little bit overrated this season. And the total is 7. It opened 7.5 with heavy juice, and now just about everybody out there. I'm only seeing 7.5 under 35. I'll take it under. I'll take it under the 7. You lay about minus 105 in that regard. So give me Boston, Houston under on a day game, and I believe it's the getaway game. And keep that in mind when they have the getaway games. Even though they have the strike zone situation right now, if you watched any of the games yesterday, the umpires continue to make a lot of bad calls, but the team doesn't want to challenge them because you don't want to lose one of your 2 challenges. So the umpires, until the umpires are gone and they just use the computers, you're going to find a lot of bad calls, and that's going to continue. So both of these pitchers are very good at their location. So I'm going to play this game under the total of 7, and that'll be my parlay on today's card.
Since we've already talked about my legs, so I'm gonna sort of like use this time to finish talking about this game. 2 things. Like, one, we talked about the Red Sox sort of hitting woes. and not, that was sort of my deterrent from playing them yesterday, was that I just didn't like what I saw out of the offense all weekend. And then on Monday, when they lost 8-1 and they come out last night, can't hit again, 9-2. So I don't really, just as far as your under's concerned, I really don't want part of these Red Sox bats until they show something, a little bit of life. You go back to Sunday's game, just that one home run, and really didn't have many other scoring chances in that game. And then my very first under the radar episode, and I'll bring Tokyo Brandon here to comment on this game as well. My first episode was entirely dedicated to talking about Mike Burrows, change of scenery in an organization that may actually help him get over the hump as a pitcher. I felt like he was a little bit of the odd man out in terms of like the Pirates having all these prospects. He was the expendable one. They needed to add some, I think that was part of the 3-team deal where Jacob Melton ended up with the Rays. The Pirates got back, I think, Brandon Lowe, who's been great for them. And then the Houston Astros got a starter who they kind of desperately need. So I'm sort of pro Burrows. He had 6 strikeouts in that first game. I thought his stuff looked good despite maybe not getting like the overall result. So Brian, I'm with you here. Under makes a lot of sense. 7s are tough, but it's kind of the right way to look here. TB, Red Sox Astros to you before I close it down.
Yeah, both teams lineups a little underwhelming, but I'm on board with you guys. I don't have high hopes for the Astros this year. They do have good pitching. Crochet is one of the elite pitchers, top 5 pitcher in Major League Baseball, without a doubt. He's got pretty bad numbers against these batters in his career, but I wouldn't shy away from the under, like you guys mentioned. I agree that Burrow's first start was, jitters being on a new team or whatnot. First start of the season, everyone's going to have a bad game. I mean, Skeens had a bad game, and he's one of the best in MLB. So you gotta be able to throw. It's like gymnastics judges. You got to throw the low score away and take the mean. So I expect an under in this one as well.
And I don't even think it's fair to say Burrows had like a bad start. Like he pitched into the 6th inning. Yeah, he gave up 5 runs. That's less than, it's less than ideal, but still. I mean, he went into the 6th. He had 6 strikeouts. Like, to me, like I think that's a start he could build off of. So I think this was a good pull there, Brian. You got Crochet on the other side. When he's on, forget it. Like this has 3-2 written all over it. 3-1, 2-1. Yeah, that's a good call. And then someone in the chat just Astros plus 130 or whatever they are. Listen, you're not going to find me on the Red Sox until they give me a little bit more of a reason to think that they're going to turn in the other direction. So I said yesterday, I made the analogy of like, I'm hitting the check like I'm playing poker. I want to see one more before I jump in with the Red Sox. Well, I saw another card I didn't like yesterday, and so I'll be passing here. It's certainly not going to turn around and lay a price with them sort of mired in this slump right now. So go ahead, TB.
Quick point about that, just very quickly. Yes, Crochet is an awesome pitcher, but if you think there's only going to be 5 runs in this game, his 5 innings, if he can shut them down to 0 or 1, it's kind of negligible. So a low score kind of negates good pitching. So I wouldn't be against the Astros plus money either. I haven't bet it though.
I don't need the time for the best bets because my best bet was the first game we talked about. I'm laying the -1.5 with the Dodgers. I think they probably destroy the Guardians today. I think that was really just just the way that all played out yesterday was sort of like soul crushing for the Guardians. They have this exciting young player that comes in, they lose him. They're in a tight game and they kind of let it slip at the end. They lose 4-1. They did get their win in this series. I think mentally, like they probably said, oh, if we can win 1 out in LA, that's, especially coming off of the split with the Mariners, we'll take that. They've got that. So, kind of feel the same about the Rockies from a mentality standpoint too. Hey, we did what we came here to do. We got 1. So I'll lay the -1.5 with the Dodgers. I just think that I've got about over a 2-run difference on my projection with those teams. So I'm comfortable with laying the -1.5, -120. Not going to be a client play, but for the parlay, I like that quite a bit. And listen, if you want to take less risk for less payout, you could always just put the money line in there. but I'm going to go with the -1.5 in this scenario. Give us some respectable odds for this one. Guys, on our page, the double play. Choose any of the two handicappers. I've got one client play locked in for today. I know my co-hosts are going to have them as well. Individual packages will be up there, but the better way to do it is the double play, the you pick two, if you will. Two of the panelists on here. We'll be back for more Total Bases 9 a.m. tomorrow. And quick programming note, Full Court Press will be back every weekday until the championship game. So Rob Vino and I, in about 15 minutes, if college basketball is your thing, are back live right here. And we will be here Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Monday to close down the season. So if you're not into basketball, I'll see you at 9 a.m. tomorrow. If you are, I'll see you in 15 minutes after I go refill my water. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you guys tomorrow for more Total Bases.